All right. So obviously, we have a whole different set of words that come to mind when we think of the word leadership. Just looking at some, I see some synonyms. I see some words that perhaps are characteristics of leaders. I see some people that actually embody what we think are leaders. So, in a sense, we are talking about a number of different things. It's a wide category. There are so many different aspects of leadership that it's really hard to define, but we can actually maybe identify characteristics better than we can actually put our thumb on it and actually um, hammer it down a specific definition. There are, of course, definitions, and they vary based off where you look at them. Maybe our definition of coaches might be differ from somebody who's a leader in the army. Maybe the same thing's true in the office too, in business, but there might be similar characteristics and things like that. So what we're just going to do is explore more about this idea of leadership and hopefully get some ideas in your guys' mind tonight. So moving along. So when we talk about this idea of transformational leadership, and I know there's a lot of words on this slide, and it's like the rule number one, don't do this when you're doing presentations. But basically what we're highlighting here is just how leadership was a transactional thing, meaning when you were a leader, in order to get people to do their jobs, you typically had rewards or you had punishments. And so that was like what we call a transactional leader. There's a transaction. You did something for your boss, or you were given something from your boss based on how you did, or something was taken away. That was like a pretty like small but like quick overview of like what the history has been. And since then, there's been this idea, and Bass came up with this idea of transformational leadership, which is we could do better. We can improve the quality of performance by almost revolutionizing the approach to leading others. And in this case, can we shift attitudes? Can we shift beliefs? Can we shift the values that we abide by or we ascribe to, so that we can really push the people that work for us into a bigger, more motivating or charismatic kind of direction that they really want to be a part of? And that's where this idea of transformational leadership comes from. And it's interesting that the first concept that's been like recorded was here by James Burns, who is a biographer, who mentioned like transformational leadership here with Roosevelt and Kennedy. And when you think about what Roosevelt and Kennedy did, they were perhaps poised with two of the most challenging things. Kennedy wanted to take us to the moon, and you had Roosevelt, who basically had to lead us through perhaps the Depression and World War II, which were, obviously some of the largest, worldwide events to happen in the 20th or the 20th century. So, very interesting that comes out there. Now, I do want to take a moment here to share with you that Ryan is going to be jumping in here because, of course, he's been working with leadership for a while, and I want to make sure we're leveraging his know-how and his expertise here. So we're going to be kind of bouncing back and forth. So as we go along, you might hear him jump in and things like that. So don't be surprised if you hear his voice change or my voice switch to his. So when we look at transactional leadership to transformational leadership, we're talking about changing some components of how things are being done. The first component is idealized influence. So the leader's acting as a role model. They're articulating and like providing these high expectations about what the group's goals might be, or trying to create this larger mission. So it is not necessarily just you do X, we do Y. It's we believe you have this this ability to achieve this. We're going to try and push you towards that. Again, think Kennedy going to the moon at the time, very challenging thing. Now they talk about inspirational motivation. So motivating, giving clear vision while also giving confidence in the fact that this can be achieved. So you're basically arming your individuals that you're leading with the things that they need to be successful with. You're giving them the support, you're giving them the path, but then at the same time, you're also helping them buy into the path by providing them a chance to be a part of designing that path, perhaps. Giving them a say in the goals, giving them a chance to have some ownership into what's going on. And then, of course, with any good leadership or any good leader, you're going to want to provide them with things that are going to stimulate them. So you're going to give them a chance to make some decision. You're going to give them some autonomy. Let them be innovative. Typically when you think about these leaders who have revolutionized an industry, they haven't done things without taking risks. they've taken risks, they've tried to apply things, they've tried to put themselves out there really. And so, that tends to be something that people gravitate towards. Let's try something new. Well, I kind of like this idea of making an autonomous electric car. No wonder why Elon Musk is kind of drawing in these young generational people who are engineers that really want to go work for him. Or no wonder why the coaches of today that have these innovative ideas of playing an attacking style of soccer or a different style of football, players want to play for them. It shouldn't be surprised because they like that stuff. They want to try something different. They want to do something new. And the last piece is bolded because that's what we're going to focus on today is, as a leader, you are taking your role to try to individualize your actions with individual people and meeting their needs, hoping to address their strengths and utilize those, and also like help them reach what they're kind of striving for. So today we're going to look at the VIA, the values in action, and how we can utilize those strengths to empower or even insert some people into places where they can utilize those strengths and leverage those strengths to really accelerate. So that's what we're talking about with this idea of idealized or individualized considerations. How can we take things that our members, our team members have, or the players have, or people who we work for or that work under us, how can we use their strengths to kind of push them along and put them in places where they can be successful?
So I guess I'll step in here. One of the things that we do at Northview, or at least with the Leadership Academy, is transformational and transactional is kind of a difficult concept, I think, for kids to understand. Might even be for college students, definitely for high school students. But one of the things that we do is we provide images that I guess describe principles of leadership. So if we're talking about transactional versus transformational, what we came up with, what we borrowed was the driver versus the builder. So the driver is the transactional leader, the builder is the transformational leader. Go ahead, John. And these are just, I guess, dominant leadership styles from the transactional. And if you look at these, you can probably remember or even think about times where you've seen these particular traits. Am I echoing to anybody at all? Is there any?
Yes, you're echoing to me.
Oh.
I'm echoing. Yes.
You might mute.
I'm trying to figure out, because I'm echoing to myself. And I really don't want to hear my own voice.
Do you have your computer mic and your headphones mic?
My computer mic? You got to remember, I'm a digital immigrant, Michelle.
And you may be connected on audio, the computer and your headphones.
I gotcha. So if I take my earphones out.
John, can you try muting yourself?
No.
Oh, there you go.
Now. There we go. Okay. Oh, that's better. That's better. Okay. Wow. I'm old. That's all I can say about that. Okay. So it didn't always used to be that way. But I'll just tell you what we do with kids is so basically what we do is we give them these descriptions of dominant leadership styles of transactional and transformational. And John, you can switch to the next one too. Just so they can get a look at transformational now. And you can kind of see the dominant leadership styles. What we usually do is we talk about servant leadership quite a bit and how that's a transformational leadership style. But I want to preface this by saying that I think transactional sometimes is necessary. I'm not saying that it's something that should be the dominant style, but sometimes it's necessary if there is a short range task that needs to be completed. And there are certain traits there with the transactional that might be necessary. But for the most part, like John said, transformational, we're starting to realize that this is how we get kids and programs in particular long-term to be successful. So what we do is we sit down with them and we ask them, without naming names, can you tell me what the specific actions of a certain mentor, coach, friend, leader, administrator have, or what they've done that make them transactional or make them transformational? So when the kids get in groups and they talk about this, they'll come up with things like, yeah, transformational. Yeah, I have a teacher that is really positive, that seeks to find the positive in everything we do. And in education, positive-based initiative is a big deal right now. So, and important. So they might name things like that. And then transactional side, they might say, well, this coach, they scream and yell a lot, but it's not positive. It's mostly critical, and it's never positive. And of course there has to be a balance. So that would be a transactional description that kids might give, and we talk about that. So there's a really good discussion between our kids when we do this, and I do it with players as well. So they get to name those things, and they get to discover and realize this is what transformational looks like, and this is what transactional looks like. So, sorry, John.
No, I appreciate that, and it's always good to at least consider that. As coaches, we can't assume that everyone's going to relate to the way we conceptualize something. So I think it's really nice that Ryan can bring this along about the driver and the builder. So just something to keep in mind as you're moving along here and working with your own athletes and people that you lead. Now, here's where I want to bring in the VIA. So if you didn't get a chance to use the VIA, and I'll pause here after I get done with this slide. The VIA is a really good tool to use in a leadership position, not just because it gives you an idea of what the characteristics are of those that are in your program or that are around you, but also because it gives you some information then that you can take and you can leverage. And when you can utilize these character strengths, then you can really start to help people flourish. And that goes back to that individualized consideration. So I'm not sure how many did, and I'll stop my share here pretty soon so we can actually have a little discussion about this. But when you do the VIA, I'm sure those that went through it, you had 100 and some questions to ask, and it's hard to really, answer them, because you're kind of like, well, sometimes I do this and sometimes I do that. And I don't know, I don't always do this, but, so it can be some response bias to it, but I think it gives a nice general picture as to, what you are all about. And the results can be pretty fairly accurate if you take the time and take the opportunity to really be honest with it. And so when you look at the studies that have been done with it, there's a ton of benefits to them. This is actually something that's used out of the Positive Psychology Center at University of Pennsylvania. And if you're not familiar with that, essentially traditional psychology has been like, what's the deficit and how do we bring people back to baseline? Whereas positive psychology is in the realm of like, hey, we aren't always looking for these, these, I don't want to say bad things, but these deficits in people, but what kind of things can we leverage that are actually positive about the things that we do? So how, like in this case, people have strengths. And so how can we figure out what those strengths are? And then once we know what those strengths are, how can we help them use them so that they can enhance their own lives? And so some of the research that's been done and some of the results that have been found are, some of these benefits right here. You get enhanced well-being because when you use them, they perhaps reduce depressive symptoms, because maybe you're a person who is appreciates things like love and beauty. So you just naturally notice like sunsets. And when you sit there and you notice the sunset, it really calms you down, makes you feel good. You reflect on like life, and it provides you with perspective, something like that. Improve self-acceptance. It helps you understand who you are. Remember, these are strengths, they're not weaknesses. So even if your last strength is 25th, it's not really I used to call them lesser strengths when we worked with them in the military. And I'll give Rahul an opportunity to talk about his experience here as well. But we're talking about giving people information about themselves so they can complete that self-image, so they know who they are a little bit more. So they're more self-assured, maybe a little more confident in what they are and what they bring to the table. It's interesting when you ask some kids or some people, what are you good at? Well, sometimes they don't have no idea. Or, what are some of your strengths? I have no idea. But taking something like this can really help bring some of that content and some of that information to the table for them so they can really know a little bit more about themselves. Again, subjective happiness, so boosting life satisfaction. If I'm a person who, which I am, humor and playfulness is really big on mine. I think it's like the second one. Then, I can seek out those opportunities to laugh and have fun and joke around with people. And now, that'll give me some enjoyment. It'll release those endorphins. I'll have a chance to really boost some of my relationships with people that I, enjoy hanging around with. So it's all good stuff. Improve mental health, again, positive experiences, working with other people, getting a chance to leverage some of my leadership skills, maybe a chance to share some love with somebody. Those are all strengths that are in there. Positive work experiences, again, leveraging strengths, like maybe there's a place where prudence fits in and you need somebody who's very prudent. Well, maybe you can put them in there and you can leverage their prudence strength. Positive affect at school. So again, knowing what your strengths are, leveraging those, get a person who's creative, get them in creative positions, let them be more creative with their homework, let them be more creative with the projects they have to produce. And then with problem solving, you're giving them the strengths that they have, and you're helping them say, hey, look, you have this ability or you like to learn stuff. Let's see what we can learn about, whatever might be relevant to solving this problem. And let's get into it a little bit. So I'm going to pause here and I'm going to stop sharing my screen. We'll come back to a conversation here. So is there anybody in here that got a chance to fill out the survey and would be willing to share what one of your top 5 are, and maybe how you think it identifies with it? And I'm more than happy to start. My first one is zest, energy, and enthusiasm. On the list is just zest, but I think Rahul will let you know that when we would work together, there was quite a bit of energy in the office where I would just goof around and be silly. And that's probably me at my best, is when I'm, having fun, having a good time, finding opportunities to make jokes, sending Rahul videos of like Mr. Deeds and whatnot. So, always a good time. So, Rahul, do you want to share anything about your experience with the VIA?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I would recommend taking multiple times. Like, it's a pretty long survey, but the first time I took it was about 6 years ago in 2015. And I've taken it every 2 or 3 years since. So seeing the long-term change in it, I think, has been the most unique aspect of it. So I took it in 2015, took it again in 2017. And then last year I took it as part of a separate job altogether. And seeing just kind of like some of the reshuffle, seeing especially where your priorities are, the things that you really value in doing in your daily life, I think was the biggest aspect of it that was most informational for me. Just because, like, you go through different things, different changes, whether it's in job or school or, family life, personal life, relationships, whatever it might be. And so it kind of starts to change around, like, what do you really value at that current time? And I think I would definitely recommend, like, a lot of people just kind of click through all of them because there's like a million questions, but it's really worth taking the time to actually think about, on a daily, how would I genuinely answer this? And I think the reflection of it is like fascinating. I know people who have taken it, they've had like, their spouse take it for them just to see if, like, the results kind of come out the same. I've had people who have taken it at different points in their life, or have taken it, multiple times, or have had people trying to figure out what their strengths are. So there's a lot that you could do with it. And I think it's a great decision, like just discussion point, just in general, for, I think, like any team that you're working with, just to kind of see, what the makeup of your team is, and just to see what people just genuinely value as a group.
Yeah, thank you for that, Rahul. I think one thing that's really important to mention too is things are going to change based on life experiences too. So, like, you might have some that are pretty standard, pretty straightforward, but there might be some that change. Like maybe you have, a large life event that might shift something. So maybe you're, you get more serious about love and appreciation of things that maybe you didn't have before. So that's definitely something that people mention is like, I don't know why this changed, and they don't really have an idea. They're kind of concerned, but really it's like, number one, they're not weaknesses, they're strengths. And perhaps, you haven't had a chance to use some of the ones that are at the bottom. And the cool thing that we had the opportunity to do is work with a ton of soldiers, and it was unique to see how many of them that took the test more recently would align with the soldiers that came through, years before. So I think when some of the data was collected, there was like 5,000 or 6,000 soldiers that had gone through the program. And it was almost, if they weren't all the top 5, they were within the top 10 or top 11 or top 12 that these same characteristics came up with, like, like justice and I don't think prudence was on there, but there were a couple other ones that were pretty straightforward, that were like, these are definitely characteristics that these kind of people that come in the military have. So it is pretty interesting. So I do, again, want to offer you guys a chance to share if you have yours. I'm going to talk about mine and show you how to kind of use them a little bit, but I'd love to hear what you guys have if you got anything.
I got no shame in starting it off. Do you want all my top 5?
You can just pick one, really. You can pick one and just kind of maybe how you think it works for you or doesn't.
Well, my number 1 was humor, liking to laugh and tease, bringing smiles to other people. It's suggestion there. I definitely am a person who enjoys making people be happy, and I find myself, especially in coaching at this level now, like if one of my players is down and out about something, that's the first thing I want to do is try to find a way to lightheartedly, I don't know, bring some light to the situation and try to get a laugh out of them, get a smirk, get a smile, something just to kind of get them out of whatever funk they might be in. But I think I've done that a lot in my life with personal relationships, friends, family, the workplace or at home, doesn't matter. You can't live a happy life without laughing, I don't think. And I'm sure a lot of people would agree. So I'm definitely one to, and Michelle knows I'm guilty of it. Sometimes it's not the right time to make a joke, but I'm willing to take the chance in the hopes that it works the way I meant it to, and it doesn't always. But hey, that's when
happens.
That's when I try to check myself and stay humble a little bit, I guess. So
You might be an honorary English person because jokes just come no matter what the situation.
I was thinking the same thing. Like it was funny that he tested that, because people seem to pick on Sean with no remorse, no matter what situation I've seen him in. Like people just go right after him, and he takes it like.
Don't know what you're talking about. Don't know what you're talking about.
now years of working with the Brits at Pacesetter, I'm sure kind of helped mold that thick skin. So,
well, Sean, you bring up a good point too. There is such a thing as a shadow side of the strength. So like if you can overuse your strength or use it in the wrong spot. So, that's a really good point about, one of the things we have to be mindful of with this is like, you can't always assume that it's always going to work. Like there's going to be a right place for zest. There's going to be a right place for humor. There's also going to be a wrong place for zest. There's going to be a wrong place for humor. And I think, we all know that. And when we get in those situations, sometimes it's not very comfortable, but it's a good learning experience. And again, you just reflect on it a little bit and you can just kind of say, hey, yeah, that was the wrong place, wrong time. You humble and you apologize maybe, and you keep moving. So not necessarily a bad thing, but, sometimes we do make that mistake because we're just overly zealous with things. I mean, Rahul would know from me, like sometimes the videos in the office would go a little bit too far or something, but yeah, it definitely happens. So yeah, Sean, thanks for sharing it. So it sounds like that's pretty authentic one for you.
John, I'm checking this, and social intelligence is what you're talking about. So I just want you to know that that's not near the top of my list. So if you need some advice, apparently I know what I'm talking about.
Hey, I'll tell you what, I'll take it. And that's another good way to leverage these things. Because if you have somebody who's high in one and perhaps the opposite of the other, so like if I'm low in social intelligence and Ryan's high, what an opportunity to pair two people together on your team to help mentor and guide. Perhaps, you're hoping that they're going to do that, but it can be deliberate as you choose to to work through these things and try to find these places to use them with your group. So let's go with one more person. Anybody else want to offer up what theirs was?
I'll go ahead and share just two that seemed in my top 5 that were I consider similar as hope and gratitude. Right, I'm pretty. I see things positively most of the time, and then gratitude didn't surprise me. I very fortunate of where I'm at, and I laugh at. I still think of myself as a kid from South Dakota, town of 800 at all times. In every situation, just laugh like, here I am. So, was not surprised by those.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. And that also reminds me too, when you perhaps look at your words and the definitions might deviate from what you think it means. So you might have to check in with that and just kind of look and see, because, like leadership may not be exactly what leadership is, or you might notice that leadership's on there, but it's interesting that there are characteristics of leaders that are on there. So, you've got prudence, you got social, intelligence, you got love, those are all probably characteristics that you'd think you'd see in leaders. So, it's definitely not a very straightforward thing. There's some complexity behind it. So I'd recommend, if you're going to use it, make sure, you kind of do your homework a little bit. There is like the, what do they call it? There's a website where you can kind of go online, you can look at it, you can search how to use a character strength and things like that. So you can definitely find resources to help you out with it. So speaking of that, what I want to do is use mine as an example of how you might use yours or use it with your groups. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen here real quick. And so when we do this, mine are going to be top 5: zest, humor and playfulness, love of learning, creativity, appreciation of beauty and excellence. The bottom one's prudence, self-regulation, obviously, because I am sometimes I don't think before I do. Bravery, which is interesting because I don't really consider myself to not be a brave person. But then again, this is not a weakness thing. This is a strength thing. So maybe I haven't been put in situations where I need to really use some of that bravery I have. And perseverance, I'm not really surprised because I do tend to not completely check out of things, but I tend to not finish on some things, like perhaps some of the books that I'm reading. I don't tend to persevere through those. But again, that may not be an accurate use of that strength, considering it might not be the definition of it. So how can we use these things? On the other side here, you see a couple exercises. I like the C activity, where as a person working with somebody, so I'll use Rahul, for example. If I have an idea of what Rahul's top 5 strengths are, I might be able to just take note of what he's doing or how he's been doing things lately and just say, hey, man, I've noticed that you've been leveraging, or I noticed that you've been doing a lot with you've been studying really hard. So maybe I'm tapping into that love of learning piece for him. I don't know if that is his right now, but if it was one of his, I could say, I saw you over there on the table, writing down some notes, reading that stuff. It looked like you're really into it. And I just want to tell you that really motivates me, because when I see you learning more, it makes me want to learn more, because I want to be able to contribute when we have conversations. And if I'm going to be supporting you for a training, I definitely want to be able to be on the same page as you. So I can appreciate how, your love of learning is encouraging me to do the same. Now that might take 2 minutes, but that might in fact deepen the relationship I have with Rahul. It might help him feel like he's being seen doing good work. And also it hopefully is going to inspire me then to next time he jumps in on doing something, maybe I'm going to follow along with him. So that's definitely one. The third one there, create a daily strength habit. Pick a trait, pick a strength, and just take it and say, today I want to focus on creativity. How can I leverage my creativity thing? Maybe it's you create a coaching group with people just to talk about coaching stuff. Maybe it's you draw a picture of something because you like to kind of zone out for a little bit. It's a nice stress reliever. Any of those things you can do. The strength journal is basically where you take a moment. It's like gratitude journaling almost, where you take a moment, you think about it, like what's been going on in your day, and think about individual moments that maybe make you feel fulfilled, maybe made you feel good, and just try to identify the strengths that were used in those moments or in that moment that you could leverage again. So just looking for ways to get information for your players so you can know more about them, but also so they can know more about themselves and each other. One game that I used to play with my some of the athletes and some of the kids that I taught in school was I'd have them take the survey. I'd get their top 5 and then have them listed anonymously and have them try and guess who they were. And, you know, it might be hard with 18, 20 players or whatever, but if you break up into groups and say, you know, you 4 go here, you 4 go here, here's the list of your 4, but you don't know who's who, try and identify them. And hopefully if they're not a bunch of knuckleheads, they know what their own are. But then you can have them kind of work through it and you can go, oh, you know, when I think about it, I think this is you because, you know, you tend to be silly and goofy and, you know, you like that crazy stuff with, you know, all the anime that you like, you know, or whatever it might be. You give them a chance to really bond and explore and build some of that rapport, psychological safety, all those things that we talk about good teams have. This is another opportunity to build that stuff. So definitely think about that. Now, moving on to Ryan. Ryan's going to take over for a little bit and share more about what he's been doing and some of his leadership stuff.
You got to unmute yourself, Ryan.
Thank you, digital immigrant. Everybody, this is where you laugh about Creech. All right. Anyway, so tell the quick story why we started the Leadership Academy, and go through a couple things that we do. So the Leadership Academy was started out of, I guess, an idea that we just felt like a friend of mine, Steve Swaggerty, came to Northview and became the principal as a really young guy. And I went up to him in the hallway and I said, hey, look, I really feel pretty strongly about this. I don't know how we can do this, but I really think we should try to build leadership skills with the kids. And one of the questions we always come up with when we first start is, are leaders born or are they made through deliberate practice? And of course, most kids will say, well, they're born, right? You know, that's why they hear a lot of adults from long time ago say, oh, he's a born leader. And excuse my language, but I think that's bullshit. I think that kids obviously naturally are a little bit more brave than other kids, but that doesn't necessarily make them better leaders. And I found that out from my students, really. But what we do is start to discover that leaders are born through deliberate practice. Leaders are made, they're not born. And really great leaders go through experiences and events that make them into really good leaders. So, you know, we start out by defining leadership. So the first thing we do is, hey, tell me what you think a great leader is. What are the defining terms or definitions of a leader? And we talk about that, and we have discussions based on that with our phase 1 group, which is the freshmen. And of course, through the 4 phases from freshman to senior year, we go through very different things to create a tool belt for leadership. So we give them as many tools as we can to take with them when they leave for college or for other things. One of the things we do with that tool belt is we host leadership lunches, and we invite people of diverse careers to speak about their lives, their origin stories with their companies, and how they lead people. So our belief was that we couldn't do this ourselves. We couldn't create leaders without hearing from other people, from hearing different voices. And I want to give a shout out a little bit to Jimmy Walker, because, you know, to be honest, I'm not that big a deal. There's so much more I need to learn about leadership, and there's so much more I can do to become a better leader. But Jimmy has decided that he needed different voices in his program. He needed people to come in and talk about leadership. And I know that's one of the main things that he does. He brings people in to talk about their leadership experiences and in things that they feel really passionate about. And I think that is something that that inspires our kids, our players, because they hear it from very diverse people. So anyway, we do that with our leadership lunches. We even had, I don't know how we did it, but we got Jim Tressel to come in, who used to coach Ohio State football team and won a national championship. And of course, in this country, that's a huge deal. And he spoke to our school, and that was huge. We do retreats. So our junior and seniors have retreats in the summer, and they're just a single day. But we do loads of activities like Amazing Race, Earthquake, Videre, Post-it Note Positivity. And I don't want to go in and explain those. If somebody really wants to know about them in detail, I can talk about those, but we don't have much time here. So those are things that we do. I did a positivity talk centering around the coffee bean, which I learned from a book I read by John Gordon. And Jimmy's kids actually had the benefit of hearing that. I think the benefit, I don't know. But one of the things we constantly do, and I know we've talked about here, is redefining leadership, constantly redefining leadership. And it is redefined every single year. And I'm amazed at how insightful kids are if they're allowed to share. And one of the biggest parts of our program was sophomore year, creating a service project from start to finish. And all we did was facilitate. The kids came up with the idea, found the organization, found the event, created the event, and followed through with it. And I'm telling you, if there's anything I can recommend for your group, your team, your organization, make them do a service project and make them do it themselves. Because one of the greatest things I've learned as a leader, and still learning a great deal today, is follow through. And they learn to do that. And sometimes they fall flat on their ass and they learn, oh, follow through is really important. So that was a huge deal. Their junior years is something that I lead, and it's teaching leadership principles through images. And these ideas I got from Tim Elmore, who has a website called Growing Leaders, and I love it. And I have several of his books that I've read. And if you know anything about this generation and the generation that you're coaching, they learn through images. Everything they do is images. And it's true. I know it's a cliche, but a picture is worth 1,000 words. So we teach leadership principles through images. And, you know, one of the things we start out doing in senior years, we help them build a mission statement and a vision. So the first thing we ask them is, let's say in 100 years, when you come to the end of your life, hopefully it's that long, what do you want people to say about you at your funeral? Or what do you want them to think about you after you've passed? And that helps us lead into our core values. So if kids think, well, I want people to think that I was kind, I want people to think that I was a servant, I want people to think that I was all about love, or I was all about passion, then that would be their core values. And we'd come up with core value statements. So one of the great stories, though, that I have about vision is John said something about John F. Kennedy. And we share this with the kids, and his space program is great leaders tend to do this, and they repeat their core values or their mission statement constantly, and they do it over and over and over until it sticks. And there's a story here where John F. Kennedy obviously started the vision for the space program and sending a man to the moon. And he decided that he was going to go down and visit Cape Canaveral and the Kennedy Space Center, which wasn't called that at that time. But he went down there, and he was walking down a hallway, and he had gotten his message out so vividly to everybody that worked in that space program that everybody could recite it or would repeat it. And he walked up to a janitor that he passed in the hallway and said, how you doing, sir? What are you up to? And he goes, I'm sending a man to the moon. I mean, that guy said it on the spot. I'm sending a man to the moon. And all he did was sweep floors and, well, not all he did. What he did was sweep floors and he was the janitor, but he knew his purpose and his mission was to send a man to the moon. And that is what he showed up for work for every day. So if you can get your kids to do that, wow. That's incredible. What I wanted to do though here was kind of share with you really quick is it's a simple form that I give out to my kids, each team that I coach, and it's how we kind of discuss team core values. John, if you want to click on that, I don't know if that'll come up or not. I hope that it does. So what I do with them is I kind of give them this list of a whole bunch of different core values or different values. Now you could obviously add to this list, and I kind of shared this so that you could have it. I think it's available for you. If not, you can email me and let me know. But there's this huge list, and some of you may even do this, but I have them pick 10 from this that they truly and honestly believe in, that they think are those words or those values that they want people to remember them by when they're passed. And then from those 10, I have them narrow down to the 4 they most believe in. And it could be things that are repeated in their family. It could be things that their mother repeated, their father repeated, their family repeated, but they would put those 4 down. And then what I would do is I'd take the 4 that were most used, and that would become our team core values. And then what we would do then is, John, if you want to go back to that slide, is we would go to the core value objectives activity, and we'd sit down and I would have them, oh crap, I knew it. I'll show you that, but I'm not going to go into this or go through all this, but I'll just tell you what it is. So I read a book called The Messiah Method, and I don't know if anybody had the privilege of reading it, but I'm sure you know about Messiah College and their soccer program. They've won 12, 15 national championships in as many years almost. And one of the things they do that's really big is these team core values. And what I tried to do is set up something very similar or exact, and I stole it from them because, quite frankly, I think great educators and coaches steal great things from great people. And what we do is we take those core values, and I give them a definition of those core values, and then I have them give me 3 I will or I choose to statements that are very specific so that they can carry out those core values on a consistent basis through practice and games and in their lives as well. And here are some of the, John, I think, God, please help me. I hope. Oh, damn it. Okay. Again, digital immigrant folks, you just have to laugh because I'm old. I forgot to share it, but I'll share that with everybody if you'd like. My email is rcreech@sylvaniaschools.org. But I wanted to show you just the core value statements that the kids came up with. So they would say things like, I choose to be inclusive with all of my teammates' ideas and perspectives. I will work as hard as I can at every training session and every practice by challenging every 50-50 ball. So those are things that we would put into those core value statements. And then what I would do is I'd take the 10 best or 9 or 10 best that had to do with each one of those core values, and I would print those out, laminate them, and they would have to clip those to their backpacks so that every practice we would read those, and every game we would try to read those, and they would think about those as they were playing. So those are great things that I just came up, or that I borrowed or stole, that we would come up with to do for our kids to teach really great leadership. And I want to end with this. When I was a kid, I thought leadership was the person or or the leader that spoke the loudest. And I'm sure everybody knows that just isn't true. I think the person who serves the best, it's the person who leads by action. And I certainly think it's the one who is the most empathetic on the team. So that's my spiel. I'm sorry if I talked a little long, John, but I hope that gives some of you some ideas to talk about with your teams.
No, thank you, Ryan. That was, really great, especially the, hopefully we can get the access to those things there at the bottom, but the team core values and stuff like that. But that's always good to, it's okay. It's always good to see how other people are doing things, as you said, because you can steal it, you can borrow it, you can use it. It's always great to have some things in your arsenal. Before I get into any takeaways, any considerations, I do want to offer up the space for us to at least chat a little bit, offer up some chance for questions. So I'll stop sharing real quickly and see if there's anybody that has any questions or comments or anything you want to contribute. Okay. All right. Well, then I will just very quickly get back into this and give you some of the takeaways that, something for you to consider. Scott, I got you covered as always. So just some considerations after thumbing through the literature, trying to find some best practices to help with this whole idea of transformational leadership, getting away from transactional, sorry. Number one, develop a personal or program philosophy that you have for yourself or your program that your players will really get inspired by. And Sean and I have done some of this work. USA Volleyball, I shared with him that their thing is their vision or their goal is to try and play the game the best it's ever been played, possibly ever. So every time they step out in the court, they're trying to meet this level that they know is probably virtually impossible for them to reach, but that's the standard they're looking for. That's their philosophy. You want to play this as best as possible. Recommendation there, revisit it, redevelop it, modify it as often as you feel like it needs to be done. Of course, because things change, your values change, your ideas change, your players change, culture changes. So it should probably change along with it. And again, leverage strengths, top and bottom, provide them opportunities to cultivate their bottom strengths, find opportunities for leverage their top strengths. So that way you're able to, really put them in a position to be successful, because ultimately that's what we want to do. Whether you're a coach, whether you're a manager, whether you're a parent, all good things to consider. Cultivating culture, looking at ways in which we can innovate. These are like the buzzwords that come in line with this. So innovation is key. How can we collaborate? How can we diversify and really enhance our communication? So those are typically traits and characteristics of really transformational environments: is innovation, collaboration, intense and effective communication. A couple of questions to think about to cultivate culture. What are we going to do differently? So last year we did X. So what are we going to do differently this year? How will this year be different? Same kind of question, different way it's phrased. Who can we become together? So as a group, what are we able to do? Or also, how are we going to do us? Like everybody's trying to do the same thing, but how are we going to do that by being us? So really trying to gravitate towards those strengths, those values, bringing them into practice, and really trying to make sure your program knows what the vision is, knows what the path is, and trying to really leverage those strengths so you can take off and really meet the goals and aspirations you have for the group. Second to last, practice identifying and facilitating core values, what's important to the group, what's important to, the individuals, and then trying to find ways to really either live true to those or to make sure that they're being recognized and embodied. And then lastly, this is a little bit from what we call motivational interviewing, is help them set the path or the vision or the course, but you don't have to be the person always leading them. So in counseling and with coaching and with teaching, a good teacher will lead. A good counselor will lead, a good coach will lead, but they don't only lead. They also guide. So in that case, guiding is kind of like a guided discovery. Let them kind of go, but you have your hand kind of in the mix a little bit. And then sometimes you can go to following, which allows them to take the reins and you're just going along with them. But you're really trying to deviate or switch back and forth between these 3 steps as you go through this whole process, to where in the moments you need to lead, you lead. In the moments you need to guide them, you guide them. So it's almost like letting them fail to a certain point, but not to the point where it's going to crush their egos. And then let them follow. Like if they're on a good run, follow them. And empower them, give them the things, give them the opportunities, build those opportunities, allow them to create the opportunities. But that's the recommendations that are there, is really trying to find ways to leverage these strengths and really trying to put them in a position that they can be successful. I'll pause there. I will stop sharing and I will offer you guys the chance to share whatever you got.
John, I just want to let everybody know I did share those, so everybody should be able to see those if they want to click on them. If they get this, are they getting this slide presentation?
Yeah, I will put that in the, since I
Okay.
didn't make a PowerPoint, I will definitely put the access to it in there. So for sure. Yep. One thing Ryan did mention, transformational leadership actually isn't always the best case scenario for all leadership positions. There are some times when it does not work. And so that typically tends to be in situations where things are bureaucratic. So you can leverage some of the aspirations or some of the traits of transformational leadership in some of those bureaucratic situations. But for the most part, if you're in a pretty bureaucratically dominant, culture or position, it may not work as well. But that does not mean that you can't try to incorporate some of that stuff to really try to make a difference there.
I was going to say we have transactional moments in leadership that occur organically, and sometimes it's hard to avoid. But I don't want anybody to think that that's the worst or terrible style, because sometimes it's a task-oriented thing that we need to get done, and being transactional sometimes is necessary as long as it's non-negative. But
yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's good contribution there. Any comments, anything that you want to offer up? Okay, well, I hope you guys enjoyed that. I will be sending out the notes as usual. I'll put this, since it is a Google slide deck, I will just send a link for that so you can access it wherever you want. I will send out the topic that we're going to go for the open conversation, which is next month. My thought is maybe we can split it where we can just kind of come in, have a chance to talk about the conversation, and then have it be open dialogue, contributions about whatever it is. You kind of bring your input, your ideas, and we can just brainstorm all together. So it's not just me leading; it's everybody getting a chance to share and be involved. So, bring your thinking cap, bring your Chatty Cathy name tag, whatever you want to call it, and just be ready to share and have fun and talk.
John, if you don't mind, just wanted to pass on. I thought that was brilliant tonight for everything that you guys did and put together. As a leader, every day, I don't know how it is for people that are on here, but you go away and you think and you reflect and you look at everything that you're trying to do. And there's not a day goes by where you don't look and say, I wish I could do this better and try and improve these areas. So, and it can often be a journey for everybody. I'm getting to an age now where I'm getting a lot older, and I look back and reflect on my time when I was younger and stuff. We didn't have a lot of role models and mentors per se. It was kind of figure it out. It's like you left and you're a young coach. When I was Sean's age or even younger, I was on my own, and we didn't have a lot of great mentors back then. So I think what you guys are doing is awesome. It was really good tonight. And even at my age, I've learned a ton tonight that I will go and put into my program from this point. Hopefully Paul Smith doesn't do the same. So we're good.
Thanks, Jimmy.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Jim.
I didn't catch the last part of what you were saying, John, but I wanted to add, I would love to hear, I would assume that most of these coaches do leadership of some sort in some form. with their teams or their organizations. And I would love to hear any little tidbit or any little thing that they do that they think helps. And you don't have to say it here. What I'd love them to do is share it with me on my email. Again, it's rcreech@sylvaniaschools.org, because we're always looking for ways to improve the Leadership Academy. And right now it's on hiatus due to COVID, and there's a lot that we're trying to figure out, but anything that you can add that will help us would be tremendous. And I can say this too. I just want to add this, and I'm sure most great coaches will say this, or most good coaches will say this. I learn as much from the kids and the students than I do from anybody, because the insights that they give when they're given the freedom to share are pretty incredible. So anyway.
I think what we might be able to do, Ryan, is we can put a Google Doc into the email, and anybody can access that, and they can put their resources or whatever they kind of think they're just,
Perfect.
leadership related or something like that. That might be.
Yeah, that sounds great. That sounds great.
Yeah. So, if you get the email and you see it, just feel free to throw something in there, whether it be a book, Netflix series. I know like the Jordan documentary is pretty good. There's the coaching documentary on Netflix too. There's got, I think Jill Ellis is in there. I watched that. I thought that was brilliant. She was good in that.
Ted Lasso. I mean,
yeah, Ted Lasso sure shows you what not to do in some cases, or how to bring some humor and playfulness into your own coaching style. So, yeah, good stuff. But as always, it's a pleasure, to be able to hear with you guys. I enjoy this. It's been really fun. So, hopefully, you're getting something out of it. If you need, send me an email, send me any comments, questions, concerns, whatever. It's good. Hope you guys have a good month, and I'll see you guys sometime soon.
Thanks, John. Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, John.
Yep. See you guys.
Thanks, Johnny.
You're welcome.
Cheers, Bob.
You're welcome.